Hello and welcome to Mountain Patriot Homestead. Today I thought it would be fun just to do a part 2 of old Southern sayings that I've heard all my life that kinfolk said when I was growing up, and it's a part of my vocabulary now. And recently I was talking to a couple of friends about the first video of these that I did and how much these phrases are so ingrained in us. A lot of times we don't even know we're using them because it's something, it's as natural for us to say these as it is for us to just talk about the weather. So let's do 10 more phrases today of old Southern sayings. Now the first one is rough as a cob. Well, that old boy is rough as a cob. Now, rough as a cob, it's one of those terms that can mean a couple of different things. First of all, it could describe a person that maybe is a little abrasive. In today's terms, he'd probably be considered offensive, or rough around the edges is another term that describes somebody like that. But if anybody has ever seen an old dried out corn cob and ever felt how rough they are, especially if those were in a bucket in an outhouse, you'll know those are pretty rough. And a person that's rough as a cob has a pretty abrasive or rough personality. They could be good as gold and, kind-hearted and have a heart of gold, but rough as a cob. It can also mean the texture of something, the surface of something being rough as a cob. But the way I've always used it is to describe a person as being rough as a cob. Number 2, piddling. Now, piddling is another one of those terms that can have more than one meaning, and depending on where you're from, that may be a difference in how you use it. Now, for me, if I say I'm piddling, it's usually in response to somebody's asked me, "What are you doing?" And I say, "Oh, I'm just piddling," means I'm doing something that probably is really not being very productive, but it's killing time. So if I'm piddling, it means it's not something that I'm just so in depth in that I can't just drop it and go do something else. Now, piddling can also describe an amount of something that maybe you're getting close to payday and you just have a piddling amount of money left. That can describe a lot of us these days. But piddling, if I'm using the term piddling, it's probably I'm just piddling. Now, this may be one you may or may not have heard, but when you're describing somebody as being 3 sheets to the wind. Now, I don't know much about sailing, but this is one of those terms that I had to look up to see where did that even come from, because in my head, I was always envisioning, putting clothes out on the clothesline. If you put sheets out there and how the sheets blow into the wind, and how they dance around and everything. And that's where I always thought 3 sheets to the wind come from. But it is apparently a sailing term because, and y'all, I'm sure somebody out there knows more about sailing than I do, because I know nothing about sailing other than sailing ships are beautiful and that's great. But it has something to do with the attachments that, to my understanding, are known as sheets that go from the sail down and connects those sails to keep them taut when they have them up. And if those are loose and those sails are not in the position they need to be in, then you don't have control of how the sails operate. I'm just bumbling all through this because I'm not familiar with sailing at all. But anyway, it has to do with sailing. And if you don't have your sails tight, then you don't have control over them and you're just all over the place. Well, if somebody is 3 sheets to the wind and they're that drunk, they probably are all over the place too. So if we say that somebody down here, we say somebody's 3 sheets to the wind, yeah, they're pretty drunk. They're pretty intoxicated. So 3 sheets to the wind. What a bunch of malarkey. If you hear the term malarkey, that's not a complimentary term. That means that's a bunch of nonsense. And that's just, I don't know where that came from. There's some of these terms that the origins for them, it's so controversial that I don't even try to pick one, because who knows? I read some that was just saying that it was a term that come up to describe politicians back in the 1800s. And another thing that I read said thousands of years ago it came from some Greek word. So I have no idea where the term malarkey come from, other than if you hear me say, well, that's a bunch of malarkey, that's something I'm not believing. I just think it's a bunch of nonsense. Well, I need that like I need another hole in my head. That's a term that, again, it is controversial of exactly where it came from, but to the best that I could find, it's a Yiddish term, and I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce it because I cannot. But it was a Yiddish term that meant need a hole in the head. That meant it was something you really didn't want or need. So if today somebody was trying to give me some cats, and it was like, I need them like I need another hole in my head. I don't need them. I don't want them. But thank you anyway. You keep on, you're going to ruffle my feathers. If you're ruffling feathers, you're annoying somebody, you're aggravating them, you're upsetting them, and you're probably going to have somebody getting disturbed at you. So don't be going around ruffling feathers. Now that term's really easy. If you've ever been around a bird and you see a bird get upset about something or annoy something, especially chickens, how they'll ruffle them feathers up. It's not difficult to figure out when you've upset a chicken. So ruffling feathers, that's an easy one. So don't go around ruffling feathers. Talking to that boy's like talking to a brick wall. That's one of these terms that just some people, you're going to know somebody that describes that you just wasting your breath talking to them, because they're not going to listen. They're not going to pay no attention. It's just going in one ear and out the other. They're not paying no attention to you. So it's like talking to a brick wall. Now, a lot of phrases, I have to say, are not complimentary in nature, but sometimes I think it's phrases that come about in order to describe people without just sounding downright mean. It means the same thing, but it tries to come across as being a little more kind. But this phrase, if you have any idea what a June bug is and their behavior, you'll know right off the bat that this is not complimentary at all. If you put that boy's brain in a June bug, it'd fly backwards. That boy's not real bright. Because, again, if you know anything about a June bug, and this time of year down south, we've got them stupid things. And some people call Japanese beetles June bugs, but June bugs to me are them little brown bugs, that little brown beetles that show up this time of year. And I'm not sure there's anything more stupid than them, because they just fly into anything and just beat their heads against things. They're just dumb. And so if you could put somebody's brain in a June bug and it fly backwards, they just don't have a whole lot of hope. They don't have a lot of chance. So again, not very complimentary, but trying to be a little bit nicer than just saying, you dumb as a rock. And this is another one. That poor child's so ugly. His face would raise a blister on a cement sidewalk. That's pretty homely. And the last one, not quite as bad, but describes somebody who's got some very poor aim. And that is, can't hit the broadside of a barn. Now, anybody that's ever been out on the shooting range with somebody, or even playing a game of dodgeball, some people just can't hit the broadside of a barn. So there you go, folks. 10 more sayings that I use and folks that I've grown up around, I live around, use. Some use more than others, and some may not use them at all. But if you know the history of any of these phrases and you want to share it down below, or you have any others that you want to share down below, go ahead and put those down in the comments. Give this video a like by clicking that little thumbs up, and if you hadn't subscribed, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Don't cost you anything, and we hope you come back for some more fun here at Mountain Patriot Homestead. We love y'all and hope to see you again real soon. Mountain Patriot Homestead, signing out.